And we are live. Welcome to CAD Live. This is episode 99, actually, amazingly.
Almost. One more to go.
One more to go. I don't even know what to do for the 100th episode, really. Sorry we're a bit late, by the way, guys. Just a little bit of banter backstage before kicking things off here. Welcome, as usual, to Jack Napier, who's joining me today to talk about, as usual, the art of seduction. And today we're going to be talking about transgression and the taboo. And this actually is one of my favorite chapters in the whole book. I don't know about you, Jack. I think this is really where stuff starts to get really interesting. This is some really meaty stuff in this section, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. And in all honesty, it was a shock to me to find out how many girls were actually into this. To taboo and just going further than you've ever been.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what this is really about, I think, this chapter. It's about going to excess. I mean, we can skip to the end at the beginning and say, when he talks about the reversal to this, because this whole chapter is about the lure of the taboo, the transgressive, about being naughty, the dark side, the bad boy, etc., etc. When he goes to the end and he talks about the reversal to this, because he always talks about at the end of the chapters whether there's a corollary to this, or sort of rather a negation of the concept that he's outlined in the chapter. What he says here is, listen, if you're going to be good, if you're going to be nice, don't just be nice, be Gandhi, because if you think about Gandhi or religious spiritual figures like that, they took things to an extreme. It's not, and this is the whole thing with the nice guy idea. It's not enough just to be the nice guy. If you're going to be a nice guy, be Gandhi. Otherwise, don't bother. You've got to take it to that further level.
Kill him with kindness, kind of level.
Exactly. And so I don't know if you've got any notes to say before we crack into this, really. I suppose one thing to say is that looking at the remainder of the book now, because I know we've been doing this series for quite a long time, but we are kind of coming up to the end. So I reckon we've probably only got about 3, maybe 4 episodes of this left, actually, of this particular series. Would you agree? Because we are sort of coming quite close to the conclusion now, haven't we?
Yeah, we are. We can wrap this up in a good 3 or something shows.
Yeah, definitely. So the end is in sight, guys. Don't worry. It's not like Lockdown where it's going to go on forever. The Art of Seduction series will end at some point, but I hope that this has been valuable for people. I know that people have contacted me and they've said they're really enjoying the breakdowns. They're getting value from it because, it is a great book. It is a great book, and there's so much gold in here. And I just think it's worth talking about because we use this anyway as a spin-off to then, go a little bit more general, talk about our own experiences and so on as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the best way to discuss a book, I guess. Like, what is your interpretation? And that's the thing with Robert Greene that I guess why he's so popular in this sphere. It's a living, objective text. You can always revisit it and be like, hey, this is now occurring in my certain situation right now. An example, this is not the Art of Seduction. This is 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah.
Never commit to anyone. So in my normal daily life, I know I'm not a multi-millionaire, whatever. I've always been honest even during Red Evening last week, I actually came out and said this is actually a cardboard box and I live under a bridge. So don't think too heavy of me. Don't think too heavy of me. The most expensive thing I have is this leather jacket. And I have a normal day job where I was going. But things are going well. I've made some good long-term decisions and those are paying off. Which made me able to work 24 hours a week instead of 32. But I kind of felt guilty of, laying that down with my employer where it's like, hey, mate, I just want to work 24 hours a week instead of 32. I don't care if you're busy. This is my life. But for some odd reason, I had this misplaced feeling of loyalty. And I was like, wait, I know this. And then I revisited 48 Laws of Power. Never commit to anyone. Because it's your life and you're the one who you, in the end of the day, need to be responsible for. So I just revisited that part. And well, determined like, hey, I can actually do whatever I want. And if he's not
Yeah.
happy about it, well, then there's probably somewhere else I can go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's having a sense of how you want your life to look, really. And then either people are going to fall in line with that or they're not. And that's their prerogative. But if that's the case, then, maybe you have to distance yourself from those people, I guess.
Well, exactly like the art of seduction, as in 48 Laws of Power, it is not about being powerful over others, having power over others. It's about having power over yourself. Same as seduction. Again, sword and shield, man. It's not always about seducing others. It's about knowing when you are seduced and maybe fall into a trap, so to say. Bit heavy-handed with the wording there, but still.
Yeah, exactly. So this chapter it's chapter 18. It's called Stir Up the Transgressive and the Taboo. And I'll read the intro. It goes, there are always social limits on what we can do. Some of these, the most elemental taboos, go back centuries. Others are more superficial, simply defining polite and acceptable behavior. Making your targets feel that you are leading them past either kind of limit is immensely seductive. People yearn to explore their dark side. Not everything in romantic love is supposed to be tender and soft. Hint that you have a cruel, even sadistic streak. You do not respect age differences, marriage vows, family ties. Once the desire to transgress draws your targets to you, it will be hard for them to stop. Take them further than they imagined. The shared feeling of guilt and complicity will create a powerful bond. So, yeah, man, I mean, what do you think about that? This is some pretty effed up stuff, isn't it, in a way?
Yes, it kind of is.
That's the end of the show. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yeah, that's all, folks. No, okay. Let's go back a couple of years. Back when we didn't know this stuff. Back when we were blue pill guys who were like, oh, I kind of have to be nice to her. And, well, she has a boyfriend. And women like it when you hold their hands. Like, before we knew what was really going on.
Yes.
Before we knew that. There was... this kind of shocked me back when. I told you about the girlfriend from the guitar player, right? Like the girl who kind of put me into this space. I got red pilled in reality, sort of say, by reading 48 Laws of Power. But this girl kind of showed me like, oh, there's a hell of a lot more going on. Like,
so what happened again?
Okay, so this girl was dating the main guitar player in my town. Like, he was the big shot. Like, he was the guitar player of the rock band and his girlfriend. And every guy was like fawning over her because, well, she was pretty hot. Like, and but she kept going for me for some odd reason, wanting my attention and whatever. And well, I just let her because I was like blue pill as hell. I was like, she probably just wants to be friends. I mean, she's dating the guitar player guy. She doesn't care about me. You know, like, who cares? But I was watching Fleming, the man who would be Bond, which kind of introduced me to the whole kink scene a bit. There's a scene in there where...
Is that a movie?
Series. 4-part series. Good series with Dominic Cooper and Lara Pulver.
What's it on? What side is it on?
It was by the BBC.
Oh, was it? Okay, I haven't seen that. So what's it called? Fleming, the man who would be Bond?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
Really great series. But
interesting.
There's a scene in there where Laura Pulver is kind of, she's how do I phrase that? She's kind of pushing Dominic Cooper's buttons.
Okay.
And at a certain point, he just goes like, "Oh, is that what you want?" And he just grabs her hair, grabs his belt, and you can just see her face light up. And I remember texting with this girl and just flat out saying, I feel like wrecking something in the physical sense. And she just, she responded with that shy face. And then 2 days later, she's like, I can't get it out of my head that you said that. Even though she had a boyfriend and everything. And that was my introduction to the whole taboo thing where it's like, oh, so girls are into that. Or at least this one. And well, one thing led to another, and I became, as Led Zeppelin fans might know, the backdoor man, the guy
Oh.
who she has on the side,
Mm.
who does what her boyfriend doesn't, because he is too, oh, well, you kind of have to treat him nicely. I was the guy who was like, oh, I found this new thing that I kind of find interesting. Oh, hello. There's a
Well,
kink side to me.
that's interesting. So even though the boyfriend was theoretically, you know, higher status because he was in the band and he was, you know, had that sort of local fame or whatever, actually he was playing a sort of a nice guy role, and so you were able to satisfy that other more taboo side of what she was looking for. But that's interesting. That's interesting.
But the weird thing was, I just said it flat out because, well, we were kind of friends and things like that. And I was like, oh, this is not going to happen anyway because she has a boyfriend. So I just blurted out like, hey, I feel like wrecking something physically. And then it kind of happened where she felt open to discuss that as well. Like, yes, I have been having those thoughts as well, but he just doesn't do it. So yes, you'll be surprised how much. Well, I mean, okay, let's put it like this. Sterling Cooper has an entire course on it, for God's sakes. The dominance escalation course. So to me, that was just an introduction that, yes, girls have a darker side when it comes to physical dominance, so to say.
Yes.
50 Shades of Grey made this very well known that a lot of women are into this, the taboo, so to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom's just saying, this is off topic, but I need a leather jacket for my wardrobe. Any recommendations? I would say All Saints, Reese, the UK brand, is pretty good as well. And also Zara, actually. Zara have got some pretty nice things. John MLD said his leather jacket he's been wearing at the moment, that's a Zara one. So those would be my recommendations. But All Saints, if you check out the UK website for them, or if it, in your area, wherever you are, they're pretty damn good. Any other suggestions?
I just went to a leather shop. In all honesty, I just back when I lived in Groningen, we had this old-fashioned just leather shop, and I walked in and they had this, and it just fit perfectly. Real leather. Don't cut back on the cost for it. Because
you've got to be prepared to spend a bit more on a leather jacket, I think.
Yeah, because leather jackets are long-term purchases. Like, I know I advocate for minimalism, so people are probably going to call me out on this one. But when it comes to coats and jackets and things like that, you're paying long-term. As in,
that fits in with the minimalism in a way, doesn't it? Because you only want to make that one purchase, so you're going to keep it for yeah.
So it might be a big expenditure at that time, but you're saving a lot of money in the long term. That's why I don't really like the Zara and the H&M stuff. I'll pay the extra money for a real leather jacket and not deal with Zara and H&M quality.
Yeah, I take your point. I think that Zara has started doing real leather jackets. I mean, but again, I suppose you could debate, well, how high quality is that leather? So there's that. But I think whereas before they'd just been doing plastic, fake leather jackets, I think they now do some jackets that are real leather. So, but anyway, have a look. I mean, I would say above that though, I would say All Saints, which is where I've got mine from, or Reese, the UK brand, is also really good as well.
Does Jeffrey West have jackets? I know they have great boots.
No, but if
socks and shirts, but
if they did, they would be.
You would have had one. You
can also go vintage as well. I'm looking forward to next week because we're going totally off topic here. I'm looking forward to next week because the shops are open. Going to be open again in the UK and non-essential shops, and there's a vintage store in Notting Hill that I really, really like. And the stuff in there, it's not particularly cheap because they tend to get designer stuff, but it's obviously less than what you would pay for it new. And some of the stuff you can get in there, fantastic. You know, designer stuff. I got this Dior dinner jacket. I got this Savile Row coat. I mean, fantastic stuff.
Nice.
So check that out, guys.
It's not necessarily off topic because remember when leather jacket? Oh, we weren't even alive back then. Maybe you. Who knows? But back in the 50s, like the guys with the leather jackets, the grease monkeys.
Oh yeah.
Like the real grease monkeys, like Elvis and guys like that. What's that Johnny Depp movie called? Crybaby and Grease. Guys like that. The
Yes.
leather jacket was the taboo. That was the bad boy look where it's like, ooh.
Oh, of course, absolutely, and that's continued because somebody, I think actually maybe even Tom, who raised the question originally, he was talking about Tom Torero, and Tom Torero and actually Nick Krauser as well, who was just interviewed on Tusk's channel. Their whole thing was they would go around, they advocated when you were going out to do day game, go wear a leather jacket, and they wore these like cool leather, like yours, cool sort of biker jacket type or leather jackets. And the reason that they did that was precisely because of that, because the archetype that you're presenting is I'm the bad boy, I'm a little bit edgy, blah blah blah. So even though nowadays, of course, anybody can just go and buy a leather jacket and whatever, but it's still got that symbolism to it, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's kind of the way you wear it as well. I don't know what it is, but now in the Netherlands, I don't know how it is in England. A lot of girls are wearing them too. They're wearing.
Oh yeah. No,
going
absolutely.
for that look.
Absolutely. And again, the All Saints girls, they got a lot of leather jackets and stuff. Is it the one down the Portobello Road? Yeah, that's right. It's on the Portobello Road, just around the corner from Notting Hill. We're getting so niche here now. This isn't only we're talking about clothing as opposed to Robert Greene, but we're also talking about London clothing stores and in the Notting Hill area.
What do you want to reflect? There is a certain look to girls. Know girls can pick. Girls can notice those things. I get this all the freaking time on Tinder and things like that. All of a sudden, somewhere, the girl drops the hint where it's like she's a bit submissive and into that shit. I'm like, what gave it away that I'm into that? She's like, it's just a certain thing you have in your look. You could just see you're dominant, whatever. I don't know what it is, but they notice on these little things.
Oh yeah, no, of course, and this is why. I mean, it is somewhat off topic because we're not really talking about fashion today. But this is why fashion is important, because you want to be, you want to ensure that you are communicating the right thing with how you dress, and a leather jacket is a very good shortcut to that. Because it's such a staple really for guys. But I suppose one thing I just wanted to say regarding Taboo is that I think what we're talking about here, he talks about transgression and the taboo. And I mean, the obvious go-to with this is kink type stuff and fetishy type stuff. And make no mistake, and sexualized stuff like that. And make no mistake, that stuff is incredibly powerful. And that's something that I've personally explored. I've written about it. I've written blog posts. I've written books about going to things like fetish clubs and parties and all that kind of stuff. And
you? No. Remember that exposed video about you, like Troy Francis is into BDSM? No, he never wrote a book about it. No.
Yeah. Well, I always get a spike in sales from that kind of thing, so it's all good. But yeah, I mean, like I was not because I was ever the truth of the matter is I'm not massively into that stuff personally. I mean, it's in it can be kind of sexy. Whatever. I'm not somebody like Vince from Masculine Geek who's hardcore. Who's hardcore. It's all about mummification and all that kind of stuff. Or even I think John Fitch actually is pretty into it. He talks about it a lot on Rule Zero, and I'm into it less, but I certainly been to a lot of those parties and clubs and had a really good time there and things. And if you can, 100%, that stuff is very potent and very powerful. And if you can introduce a bit of that, then girls, in many cases, really like that. But he's also talking about sort of slightly more general, just are you somebody who goes against the grain? Are you somebody who goes against society in different ways, right?
Mm-hmm. It reminded me of why progressivism is so attractive to people. And Robert uses this term a lot, like you don't want to be conservative, and not necessarily in the tradcon sense. Yeah, kind of like you don't want to be stagnant in time. You want to move forward. You want to go, like you mentioned, you want to go against the grain. Are you progressive, so to say? Are you innovative?
Well, yes, exactly. And I mean, that can go both ways, because if you think
Yeah,
about
we're seeing that right now.
well, if you think about political culture, for example, previously, I suppose you had a situation where you had conservative values, conservative sort of family values and stuff. And then you had the more progressive side, I guess loosely the more liberal side, where it was no man, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And, and then you get the old squares who would be sort of like, no, you should be at home, and blah, blah, blah. And that still persists to this day to some extent. But of course now, and I don't want to get political here, but 12-hour rants. But now we're obviously in a situation where discourse around things like sexuality and so on are, it's a tricky area because they're actually more of a leftist position, where the leftists will now say, well, you can't talk about this or you can't say that, and they'll try to close you down. So which way you go politically, if you're thinking about it in those terms, in order to be transgressive, is an interesting question, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And ironically enough, the girl who wanted me to dirty talk the roughest was the most left-leaning I had.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Really, the things she wanted me to call her, I was like, wow. And then like afterwards, she's like, oh yeah, but I'm left-wing because, well, the people and blah blah blah, and well, equality. I'm like, you just wanted me to call you all these things, and now you're like equality. Like, no way.
The thing is, what people present on the surface is rarely what's underneath. And you can meet the most traditional seeming women, and this is the classic thing, isn't it? This is at the heart of the whole Madonna whore complex fallacy, because you can meet the most traditional, sometimes religious women, and they appear to have a certain worldview, but scratch the surface, and of course underneath it's very different. And people can claim to be conservative, they can claim to be leftists in the modern sense, but underneath it, are they really? And I think what Greene's talking about is appealing to the person underneath rather than the surface level.
It's appealing to that it's okay. They're not being judged. Like, you're safe with me expressing that side of you.
Yes.
Which, what a lot of game comes down to as well. Like the whole, oh, we're not sleeping tonight. Like, a guy who gets it. Like me? Of course not. No, I'm not that kind of guy. And then you kind of know where, okay, like this guy gets it. Because she's not looking for the response that goes off on her, where it's like, oh, we're not doing that tonight. Well, I'm going home then. No. Well, maybe at the, like, when you're finding out, like, oh shit, this is really not happening.
Oh yeah,
you're
of course.
probably wasting your time. But like the first one, I'm always like, no, of course not. Me? Nah, I wouldn't dare. Whatever gave you that idea?
Yes, indeed. But this idea about forbiddenness. So there's a great quote from Freud here. He says, in my opinion, the necessary condition of forbiddenness in the erotic life of women holds the same place as the man's need to lower his sexual object. So I guess there what he's saying is that guys, this is not very PC, is it? But guys seek to lower their sexual, the person that they're sexually engaged with, they seek to sort of lower them in some way. I guess it's sort of almost code for debasement or making or being dominant over them, I guess, is perhaps another way to express it. But it's a necessary condition of forbiddenness for women to be sexually turned on, which is quite a big statement, isn't it?
Yes, but I do understand it because I've experienced it. As in, yeah, again, this is not going to be PC, guys. So verbally, they want to be talked down. In some cases, not all, but in some cases, they want to verbally be talked down to, as in to, oh my God, this is so going to sound wrong and we need to watch our words carefully. But yeah, be dominated, be the submissive side, and they want you to verbally express the dynamic of being dominated. And I think I'm saying that the most PC way I can.
Yes, exactly. There's a quote somewhere here about There's a quote somewhere here which I'm having trouble finding, but it basically says that, because he talks a lot about Lord Byron, who was obviously a pretty transgressive sort of dude, including and up to sleeping with his half sister, which is a little bit gross, but there you go. And actually, it talks about Byron. It says Byron pulled somebody called Lady Caroline, and then they became lovers, and she pursued him with unladylike aggression. And it says, at last, when it reached its sort of high point, Byron began to turn against her. He had already loved to shock. He confessed to her the nature of the secret sin he'd alluded to in Childe Harold, his homosexual affairs during his travels. He made cruel remarks, grew indifferent, but this only seemed to push her further. She sent him the customary lock of hair, but from her pubis. She followed him up the street, made public scenes. Finally, her family sent her abroad to avoid further scandal. After Byron made it clear the affair was over, she descended into madness that would last for several years. So even when he's revealing this sort of like shocking type side of her, and he's revealing this sort of cruelty and everything, it actually makes her more obsessed. It draws her to him more, which is pretty nuts, isn't it? But, you know, we've seen this happening.
Yeah, we've seen this happening. And the more wrong it is, the better it is sometimes. You want what you cannot have, and you want what is wrong. You want what is absent from the normal. Not absent from the normal, lacking vocabulary right now, but it's sorry, it's different than normal, sort of say.
Yeah.
It's like a PPT chick, believe me. No.
Well, but he said, so this is the quote. It says, women of Byron's time were longing to play a different role than society allowed them. They were supposed to be the decent moralizing force in culture. This is women were meant to be the decent moralizing force in the culture. Only men had outlets for their darker impulses. So if you like Byron, you could go around and have sex with 200 women in Rome, and it was all good. But women weren't meant to be like that. Underlying the social restrictions on women, perhaps, was a fear of the more amoral and unbridled part of the female psyche. And I think that there's truth in that, isn't there? And if we look at something like Islam, and I'm not the person, obviously Abu American or somebody's the expert on that, but it does seem that the sort of old repression that was shown towards women was in part motivated by a recognition that actually women had this other side to them, and guys felt that they had to contain that. And of course, the fact that now that doesn't happen by and large is at the root cause of a lot of dudes complaining on Twitter about how terrible things are, and wouldn't it be great if it was the 1950s again?
Well, I mean, great if it were the 1950s. I think most of them wore stockings under the sundress, to be very honest.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, it was, you know, like human nature hasn't changed in the last few hundred years at all. Probably not in the last many thousands of years, to be honest. I mean,
no. And speaking about Islam, I have a new digital friend who is a friend of Ryan's as well, Demish, and he shows me conversations he has while he lives in the heart of Islam, sort of say. It's coming, man. These women are more liberated than you think. Islam is what it used to be.
Well, oh yeah, of course, 100%. I mean, like whatever restrictions you put onto people, and this is the whole point of this section, isn't it? Because even if somebody's very conservative, they're very conventional, blah blah blah. But what about under the surface, right? What about, you know, and under the surface? And Greene here talks about appealing to the less respectful, sort of childlike, rebellious part of people, and that's what you've got to do, right?
That's why when this is what happens with like Amish girls. You know that show? I don't know what it's called. Guys in the chat, help me out. There's a show about Amish guys and girls being released into the wild, sort of say, for a week.
Yeah.
And,
I saw
oh my God. It's like we can finally do everything God forbids. And well, 9 times out of 10, like a girl ends up pregnant or whatever happens. I don't fucking know. Or a guy ends up with a drug addiction within a week. But it is attractive to most people who have been living in a restricted environment.
Exactly.
Guys like me are attractive to put it bluntly, very strictly religious raised girls. We just
Exactly.
are, because we have
Exactly.
something they never had.
Exactly, and that's happened to me before, because I remember once meeting this girl from Bahrain, actually, and she'd come from a pretty conservative sort of religious background, and we met and we went out together for a drink, and like it was really, she was just like all over me. I mean, she like literally almost jumped on me, and when we were in the bar and everything else, and it was this sense of just this sort of repressed like desire that was there, and obviously whatever it was about me that sort of ignited that, but do you know what I mean? It's like it's there and it's coiled up and it's just waiting to spring out. And I think that's the case with a lot of women, and that of course is why people are saying that we're going to see this huge roaring 20s explosion when the lockdowns start to ease, because people have been sort of like kept down for so long, and human nature doesn't go away. It doesn't change. It's all pent up.
Mm-hmm. And even now, parties are still going. In all honesty, there's enough of illegal parties going on. I mean, I haven't been able to get into one, in all honesty, but I know they're happening.
Well, there's talk about them in London. I know they broke up a couple of parties in London, I think last weekend. I mean, I'm too old now. I'm just at home with a cup of Ovaltine, and
legend has it Ernst Graf has been seen running away from them.
It's pretty thrown out. I can't believe that guy got banned from using YouTube. I mean, I know YouTube can be pretty. I know if you're a content creator, you've got to be a bit careful on YouTube. But how can you get banned as a viewer? I mean, you've got to be pretty.
I think that was a joke. I think.
You never know. You never know, do you? But there's quite a nice quote from Goethe. I think it's pronounced Goethe, isn't it? The German writer. It says, baseness attracts everybody. So basically, take it down to the lowest common denominator, lads, and that everybody likes a bit of baseness. And this is the thing as well. They kind of do. I mean, if you look at the culture in general, right, and you just taking it out a little bit just from male-female dynamics for a second. If you think about the culture in general, what gets really popular? Well, it's the stuff that's, generally speaking, not entirely, but a lot of the time, the stuff that gets really popular is the stuff that's a bit taboo, is the stuff that's a bit transgressive. This is why rock and roll. This is why rock and roll had such amazing popularity in the 1950s and 1960s. Somebody like Elvis, who he also talks about elsewhere in the book, incredible popularity, because that dude was, suddenly there was this thing that was like, whoa, this is uncivilized. There's this sexual nature to it. There's this sort of like power to it that had come out of nowhere, and people love that stuff, right?
His devilish hip movements.
Exactly. Exactly. So he and then other figures like him were like a lightning rod for all of these people who, and for guys as well, not in any sexual sense, but I suspect for guys it's just like they kind of wanted to be him, right? Because they could tell, and this is why these rock star type figures get such adulation from dudes, because dudes can see that they've broken out of the social realm. They are not, the guy who's, and even on a lower level, the guy who is location independent and he's, maybe he's not got the usual trappings of, family and blah, blah, blah. Guys can see that guy has in some way escaped the matrix. And so guys like it as well. But women like it because, again, it implies this sort of escape from boring, constraining convention.
Boring daily life. I mean, look at the 70s and 80s. Look at Robert Plant. I mean, even though he didn't wear leather or anything, but that man oozed sex. I mean, the head guy from Led Zeppelin, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Lemon song, you can squeeze my lemon out, things like that. Stood there in the most tightest jeans you'll ever see, bare-chested, singing about lemons, but everybody knew what he meant. Everybody knew what he damn meant. Chicks went wild for him. There's a complete library on books written by groupies from Led Zeppelin. Same thing in the 80s. Hair metal bands, whatever. Now that's where the kink started to show, where the men kind of dressed up like women with the tight leather jeans and things like that. Then you get to Rolo's era with Motley Crue, guys like that. Venom. What's their name? Twisted Sister. Twisted Sister was one. Alice Cooper, guys like that. They were all a push against normality, a push against the traditionalism, sort of say, against conservatism of that time.
Yes, exactly. And that's what rock and roll and you know, popular culture in general often does. And then, of course, you've got people like Marilyn Manson. I know a lot of the Tracons were. I'm not a massive Marilyn Manson fan, but you know, like nevertheless, massively popular. And actually, Tom Torero was telling me quite recently when he was in Russia and the Ukraine and places like that, he would often meet these punky girls who were like, oh, they loved Marilyn Manson, And why is that? Well, because he represents transgression. He represents something that's different to conformity. Because the point of this is, like, we're all fucking, like, this is the thing, like, all human beings really, we're all animals, right? We're all pretending to be civilized, okay? And even the people who make the rules, and probably especially the people that make the rules, they're not following them either. Like, nobody is. And this is why you so often get stories about politicians who get caught out. On the one hand, they're saying, yes, good family values, and then, they're shagging somebody's wife or something, this stuff happens all the time because all of us, we put on a facade of respectability. Some of us maybe less than others, but, we have this facade of respectability. But underneath it all, what are we really led by? Well, we want to eat. We want to have pleasurable experiences. We want to have sex. And then we die. And that's sort of it, right? And so, and women are no different. Women are absolutely no different, okay? So this is why you've got to think about, okay, so how do I communicate with that? And he talks actually in this section about the shadow side and getting in touch with the shadow side, which is the old Jungian idea of, you've got the good, socially respectable, high quality sort of side. And then you've got your darker shadow side. And what this is really about is communicating with that shadow side, right?
Well, absolutely. Again, get in touch with the taboo. A lot of people would want to deny this, but there's a reason 50 Shades of Grey almost outsold the Bible. I'm not even kidding, by the way. It might have even outsold the Bible. I'm not sure about that. Somebody's got to look that up for me, but it came close. That's what I'm sure of. Humans have a darker, twisted side to it, and you can deny it all you want, but you will meet it one day. You will meet it one day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I my sense is, I could be off the mark about this, but let me know what you think. But my sense is that the things that are somewhat transgressive actually stir people up more than the things that are sort of bland and polite. And if you think about, it always comes back to music, doesn't it? Really, there are without a doubt there are acts that are very, very big that are fairly conformist. We have Ed Sheeran, the UK singer. Yeah. Don't know if you're familiar with him. Taylor Swift is reasonably, but even Taylor Swift started doing those darker videos and stuff.
I will guarantee you she is into some freaky shit.
Oh, mate, 100%. But I'm just saying in terms of what's presented.
Yeah. I love the term sex addiction, where it's like, oh, this man is addicted to sex. It's like, really? Addiction?
Well,
normality.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, exactly. But somebody mentioned, Matt mentions Eminem. And of course, Eminem, I remember Eminem absolutely blew up at the time. Eminem absolutely blew up. But he was talking about drug addiction. He was talking about very dark, really fantasies of about his things with his wife and talking about his mother and all this kind of stuff. Obviously he's genius, but very, very, really quite dark in terms of the stuff he's talking about. And he absolutely blew up. Now, perhaps I suppose you could say, well, what about One Direction? They also blew up. it just seems to me, and maybe this is just my tastes and the stuff that I'm drawn to, but it seems to me that the darker, more taboo stuff, it seems to me it blows up more, or people love it more. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
No. You're right. You know why? Because people like to be upset as well. Marilyn Manson blew up as well back in the day. Not necessarily because his music is so great. I mean, he has a couple of songs that are pretty neat, but I mean, that's it. I can't name you one album where I'm like, oh, wow, the album was amazing. No, it's only one or two songs. But the controversy around him, people love to hate him.
Well, he was completely trolling the Christian trads, wasn't he? I mean,
they loved it. They couldn't have wished for a better enemy. They went with it. Same as like him or hate him, Donald Trump. The left loved to hate him.
Oh yeah,
he was everything against the grain. But they need it. They love to be riled up. In our daily life, we love to get angry. We love to get pissed off.
Yeah,
we are searching for things that disagree with us just so we can get off on it.
Yeah, because it's about emotion, isn't it? You know, it stirs up an emotion. And we were talking about this earlier off air, but it's all about emotion, isn't it? Really. And even the most rational amongst us, you know, we may think or believe about ourselves that we are swayed by logic, but actually we're not really. We're swayed fundamentally by emotion. Do you like somebody? Yeah, I like them because I kind of just like them. There's something about what they do or what they say or how they speak or how they look. I just like it. And even if somebody comes to you with a really well-argued, you know, sort of take down or sort of, you know, document saying, well, no, look at these things, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't fucking matter. Because in most cases, because generally speaking, what happens is we're like, well, no, the emotion still says I like them. So I just don't really care. I mean, an example of this actually is the singer Morrissey, who I've always liked. Morrissey is
the Smiths, right?
The singer of the Smiths, yeah, long solo career and blah, blah, blah. I've always loved his stuff. I've always liked him and his lyrics and things. I mean, he has now been taken down because of his views. You know, he's got some fairly sort of like, a lot of the people that liked him at the beginning don't like him now because he supported a certain political party in the UK that's pretty on the fringe right-wing wise, and he said a few things and blah, blah, blah. And many people have sort of like, oh, I'll never listen to his stuff again and blah, blah, blah. I personally, I don't really care, because to me, that's not the issue. The issue is the work, and the issue is this. Well, firstly, because I love his songs, but it's the work that he puts out, but it's the emotional bond as the person who's consuming the content. You're like, well, that is more important to me than any sort of logical reasoned argument about why I should no longer like this person. And this is the whole problem with cancel culture.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it just hit me actually, like Transgression and the Taboo, hybristrophilia. I don't know if I'm saying it right. I'm absolutely butchering it. But the attraction to criminals that a lot of women have, that they feel attracted towards. I just did a 3-hour stream. Were you shitting on people again?
Does he mean urine?
I don't know. That would.
I don't know, John. John, do you want to come on?
Do you need a doctor? Let's go.
This is why I'm on antibiotics at the moment.
Yeah, rest in peace, Jack's English. I know. Hybristrophilia. I don't know. God damn it. But it's that thing that women want and feel attracted. Look at Charles Manson. He had a cult around him.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
He had a cult around him.
Paul Benjamin talks about this a lot, and those kind of cult leaders and et cetera, et cetera. John's asking for the link. Should we send him a link?
Yeah, let's go. I haven't talked to John in a while. Last time I had to go, I'm actually off tonight, so.
Yeah.
Speaking about the content and let's say someone doing something bad, there are borders that can be crossed, but just a political opinion, I'm like, oh, well. I mean, kind of a shame. Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, he did kind of ruin it for me, where at a certain point he was so far up his own ass where I'm just like, you know what? I like your old stuff, but your new stuff can just screw itself, sort of.
Yeah, but is that because the songs weren't as good?
Well, that too. Like the songs really started to suck.
I mean, it's also sort of like if they become too woke, it becomes disappointing.
And that kind of happened with Dave Grohl for me. I mean, you've got this guy who's worth $200 million, and then he starts shitting on the working class, and you try to listen to his music, but you just hear him shitting on you.
Yes.
Kind of like,
354. But I mean, there's so much stuff in this section. I mean, like just going on to page 354, he says, as adults, we secretly want to recapture that lost self, the more adventurous, less respectful childhood part of ourselves. We're drawn to those who live out their lost selves as adults, even if it involves some evil or destructiveness. And talking of evil and destructiveness,
hey,
hello.
We have the evil and destructive John MLD. So how are you, mate? You all right?
Oh, I just did a 3-hour stream. Look at this shit.
Oh, wow.
That's my headphones sitting on top of my head. But
Jesus.
Fuck it,
well, thanks for coming on board. You must be knackered. But you've been listening to a bit of this. So what do you think about this? This idea about the transgressive, the taboo. Birds love it, right?
As soon as I just stopped streaming literally like less than 5 minutes ago. I clicked YouTube, saw your channel, and I just support you so much that I came over here and smashed the like button immediately.
Thank you, mate. I very much appreciate it. Well, what we were talking about is in The Art of Seduction, this chapter on the transgressive and the taboo. And basically, I mean, I just read out this bit here, but it says, as adults, we secretly want to recapture that lost self, the more adventurous, less respectful childhood part of us. We are drawn to those who live out their lost selves as adults, even if it involves something evil or destructive. Like Byron, you could become the lightning rod for some desires. And kind of what it all comes down to is girls like bad boys, right? I mean, they like guys with that broken side, even that slightly cruel nature.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, the first thing that came to my mind is, like, the bad boy who does drugs, the bad boy who sells drugs, the guy who gets in fights, the social derelict, like a lot of guys, they get frustrated because I used to be the guy who's like, I do everything by the book,
Yeah.
Like why is this? Why am I not getting a plethora of pussy right now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just like you're just fucking they're just living a lie. But yeah, because it takes, I think it deep down inside, everybody has like a little bit of bad or evil in them, but they suppress it due to the fear of society. And when they see somebody let it out, right? Like for a guy who just says like, fuck it, I'm gonna beat this guy's ass because he talks shit to me in the club. Girls want to do that more than ever, but they're physically weaker than the men. And it's so taboo.
Well, let's just talk about your new look just for a second, because I mentioned this to you yesterday on private chat, and you've got a slightly different look going on at the moment. You've got the leather jacket, you've got the black leather glove. These things are really symbolic of. I mean, there's certainly a bad boy, slightly dark sort of vibe about how you're presenting, and I'm sure that's deliberate, but that is a very powerful image. So is that something you could discuss in this context?
I'm just the dark truth.
That's spelled wrong. That's supposed to be with double O-F.
Only in Jack Napier land. But yeah, it's just part of the. It's part of the. That was part of the. The commercial for what's going on here, and the look is. It is somewhat of a brooding, if you will. I think that's why, Bruce Wayne kind of has like the sexual allure to women as well. He's a brooding, rich bad boy, kind of similar to Christian Grey. The women like to see that the guy with the dark side that's like slightly tormented by his demons.
Exactly. And that's something I've actually played on myself over the years. It's something I played on unconsciously, I think, at the beginning. And then as I started to learn more about this stuff, and particularly as I started to read Robert Greene, I started to do it more sort of like deliberately. You know, you start to play on it a bit more. And this is kind of what I talk about in CAD Academy, really. This is sort of stuff I'm trying to teach, you know? But do you think it can be taught, or do you think guys have either got it or they haven't?
I believe anything can be taught. I believe anything can be taught. I just think, you know, look, I'm like I said, I mean, you know, we talk about it behind closed scenes, but I'm a guy who clawed his way out of poverty.
Yeah.
Clawed tooth and nail for this shit. And I had every reason in the book to play the victim card.
Yeah.
And I just didn't do it. So I think that with sheer effort, a lot can be obtained. And the thing is this, like, look, the guys who are like a part of this community and who are like the kind of like need help community, some of them's fundamentally broken, and a big part of this is what Aaron Clary talks about. They are fucking lazy.
Yeah.
They're lazy. With effort, with hard work and optimization in 2021, you could pretty much do anything you want. Even if it takes you 10 years, it's worth it. Because like people think like Troy, you're like 47 now, right? You still want to fuck young hot girls?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man.
People are acting like this desire is going to go away. Like, oh, when I'm 40, like I'll finally settle down, and yay, I'm like, no, I don't want to have sex. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. And
yeah, exactly. Because guys have this sort of like, oh, you'll grow past that, or you should grow past it and stuff. But the reality is, we don't, do we? I don't. Well, in my experience, we don't.
Well, let's be honest, like most of those guys can't even see their dick at 30 anymore. So I can imagine that you don't want to do it anymore then. But when you're guys like us who actually take care of themselves, yeah, you do want to bang into infinity.
Yeah. What about this, though? This guy, Viking Paradigm, says, my LTR stays with me because my demons. Like, there's an element to that, isn't there? I mean, I'm sure you've had this, John or Jack, where you're with a girl and she kind of gets off on the fact that you've got this slightly darker side about you.
Yeah, because that darker side is, it's like it's kind of like the dark side of the Force, or like if you watch Naruto, it's like having the demon fox inside of you, like this raw source of power. There's something primal about it, and like the beta guy, he's the safe guy, but he's also a fucking massive pussy, and he doesn't tap into that inner evil strength, that inner dark side. You know what I mean? So, like a great analogy. Troy, you're too cool to watch Naruto. I know that, but like, there's this guy in Naruto, and he has like this a 9-tailed demonic fox inside of him, and they placed him at birth, and he became like an outcast in society. And if he got too emotional, the fox would come out and he would fucking kill everybody around him and destroy everybody around him. And I think every guy has that fox inside of them, and they need to harness the energy of it, but at the same time, don't let it destroy them. But that is like what is attractive to women when you have like that. It's hard to quantify in words now that you've brought it up, but that kind of like using the word evil is could be very easily misconstrued. But it is a certain, like I would say more similar to the dark side of the Force.
Yeah, you're right. It's hard to sort of define exactly, but it's something that I think anybody who's had any experience with women or a reasonable amount of experience with women will recognize this. I think there's another quote from the book. It says, women do lots of things not because they are women do lots of things just because they're forbidden, which were they not forbidden, they almost certainly would not do. Which is kind of interesting, isn't it? Right. And you've seen this happening. You've seen the girl who will do some crazy shit for the bad boy. You know, she'll run across town. She'll leave her job. She'll like do all sorts of shit, you know, leave her family for the bad boy who's got that sort of thing about him. She's not going to do that stuff for the boring average dude, right? Is she?
No, I mean, look, I had a bank problem over here with getting the money using the Swift transfer system from America to Japan, and to get my new apartment, I needed to put down $27,000, and the bank was delayed, and I could not get the money on time. And there's a woman in my life who actively knows I've cheated on her and actively knows I'm a fucking renegade derelict guy. And she gave me $27,000 to put down on the apartment.
Yeah.
I paid her back, like a couple days later, but the average chick is not going to do that for the guy that just bores her, who talks about his fucking 401k returns over a Starbucks coffee. Like, when these girls, that's why you see, like, did you ever see that video of the bodybuilder who like gave the 35-year-old bodybuilder who gave like his girlfriend like a WWE style beatdown? He like ripped a painting off the wall and like was beating her on the floor with it and like beating her. He literally beat her and stabbed her for about 5 minutes straight. The police came, took him to prison, locked him up. Guess who came to pay the bail and get him out?
His girlfriend.
Well, that's pretty nuts, isn't it? I mean, we've heard these stories about, obviously, this crosses over the line into abuse, doesn't it? And obviously what you're talking about is obviously a horrendous story, but we do get these situations where, women they stay in abusive relationships, they stay with abusive guys and stuff like that. And I mean, it's not, obviously, no one's recommending that as anything anyone should be doing, of course, but it shows that mentality, doesn't it? And it's this is the darker side of human nature in general, isn't it? And it's kind of sick, but it's, you need to be aware of these dynamics.
It's common. I just want to add to John's anime references. This is why Bulma went to Vegeta. Just saying. This is why.
No, because I think with the certain side, to be honest with you, Troy, now that I've thought about it a little bit more, I think that like that deep, I think society labels that bad boy persona now, that like the guy who's a little bit violent at the club, he's a little bit of a bad boy. He does like high risk behaviors. I think that really just ties into high testosterone and like deep core masculinity, because like 300 years ago, like if you didn't like me and I didn't like you, I'd smash your head on a rock and kill you.
Yeah.
Or I'd take you out back like, hey, let's duel, bitch. I'm gonna fucking shoot you, or you're gonna shoot me. But now everybody's a huge pussy, and so like we got to teach men to sit down when they pee, because standing when you pee is oppressive.
Let's talk about it. Like, in all honesty, I mean, John, let's be fair. Like, have you? I don't know if you've experienced this, but I'm getting kind of like physically repelled by men who just physically look weak, but can tell me what I can do because they're in a certain position, like government workers, where you can see their pencil neck and you can see in their face that they have nothing to say at home and their woman determines what they do. But because of that position, they can tell you what to do. And I just get physically sick by it.
Yeah, you gotta handle that problem like a real man. Get rich.
Yeah, get rich real quick. But you know what I mean? Like you mentioned, like high testosterone men or whatever, like we know when we have a problem, we either duke it out or we just fuck off. Yeah. But with weak men and kind of like that, we're going to talk it over, be diplomatic about that. We're going to avoid violence at all costs. It's like, no, motherfucker. Like, nope. We're going to just duke it out.
But what's interesting, I can't find the exact quote, but he says somewhere, he talks about society's based on limits, right? And he's sort of saying like society has to have some limits. Otherwise we'd all just be going around killing each other and, whatever, right? So there are limits, but the reality is human beings will always push against those limits, men and women, right? And so this is where I think the trad guys are just so off base, because the problem with the trad guys and people who have those opinions is that what they're saying is just follow all the rules, do everything right, and it's all going to be awesome. But that is a misunderstanding of human nature, isn't it? Because, of course, the reality is that even these conservative women, under the surface, they don't want any of that shit. They want the darker side. They want the bad boy. They want the rebel.
They want to be shown every corner of the bedroom. sort of say. They want a guy who can, to put it very bluntly, and I'm not saying be abusive or whatever, but they need a man who can manhandle them and know what he's doing.
Indeed. And
to put it blunt.
Absolutely. And there's also a bit of talk here about cruelty as well. And cruelty, obviously, again, disclaimer, we're not recommending this. Don't try this at home, etc., etc. But unfortunately, this also has effects. And probably we've all been in these situations where we've done something, maybe even inadvertently, we've done something that could be construed as cruel. And we've pushed somebody away from us. And that's actually drawn them to us even more. I think, John, I remember you saying at one point, you had a situation, I think, at one point where somebody was going to go on holiday with you and you didn't take them at all. And that didn't repel her from coming back to you afterwards, right?
No, it was Miss MLD. No, I'll tell you exactly what happened. She fucking pissed me off last year because right before we went on vacation, she pulled some shit where like she got mad at me and she blocked me on Instagram or some shit like she did some shit, some passive aggressive shit. I was like, okay, you want to play fucking gangster? Let's play gangster. And I called her up and I said, you're gonna pull this shit? I was like, congratulations, you just fucking lost your trip to Okinawa. I called the fucking airline. I told them, sorry, my girl, she's got fucking coronavirus. We gotta fucking cancel or she's gonna infect the whole staff. And they're like, oh my god, we can't have that. And then they refunded me and I upgraded my ticket to first class, took a bunch of fucking photos, went there alone, YOLO'd that shit. Guess who was there apologizing and waiting for me? I brought her souvenirs. I brought her a souvenir. Yeah, I got her some bath salts from the island. But, I don't give a shit. I got ice in my veins. I do that to a man who crossed me. I do that to a woman who crossed me. And people be like, oh, that's kind of harsh and whatever. Like, yeah, well, fuck you. It's my money. And you want to act a damn fool. Like, people want to think like relationships. I want a 50-50 relationship. No, it's pimp or be pimped. It's lead or be led. And women are like dogs. They need the occasional correction. They have, they want to think, okay, today I'm going to shit on the carpet. Today I'm going to try this motherfucker. I'm going to shit on the carpet. And you're like, oh, really? Well, you're going to get put in your cage for 3 hours. You're not sitting in this house on the carpet. No, sirree. And I had to put her in her cage for 3 hours.
Well, well, that's an incredible story, but it just goes to show, doesn't it? Because one of her girlfriends could look at that and go, oh, he was really cruel, blah, blah, blah. But it didn't stop her from being there when you came back. It probably, I would imagine, increased her, desire for you or whatever, or her arousal around you. But standards. Yeah, but I mean, it's worth saying as well. This goes both ways because women play this card as well, and guys will often stay with women who are actually cruel, to them in many ways. It says here, he says Lou Andre Salome could be exceptionally cruel to her men, playing coquettish games, turning alternatively icy and demanding. Her cruelty only kept her targets coming back for more. A masochistic involvement can represent a great transgressive release. So, like, dudes can fall prey to this as well, right? And women can treat guys really badly, and the guy keeps coming back for more because she seems unattainable. And it's just that, oh, if I just let this go, then I'll get her, and and they keep hanging on, and that's obviously a terrible cycle to get into.
Yeah, it's the thing is this, like, people are so quick to run and judge men, but women, they are far more cruel in the relationships than men are.
They are natural to the game.
A man's cruelty is typically physical. A woman's cruelty is psychological. But as soon as a guy flips the script and gets into her head, then guess what? Now all of a sudden he was emotionally abusive. Women are master manipulators of any situation. Okay? If you fall victim to their fucking emotional manipulation tactics.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, indeed. And women can certainly be emotionally, whatever the term is, they can certainly be emotionally like cruel or whatever as well. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It gets turned back on men a lot because that's how the power dynamic works, right?
Well, the thing is, women can get away with it because men have this innate urge to protect the feminine. So they can call foul, sort of say, ASAP, and they have 100 guys protecting them.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's difficult for a guy to see the wood for the trees in terms of if he's actually being treated badly or not. And sometimes guys who come to me for help, and even myself in the past, you know, objectively, you look at it and you're like, actually, that girl was kind of being a bitch. You know, that you deserve better than this. You deserve more than that. But they don't realize that, because in their head, she's this perfect angel, and it's like, oh God, but you know, and they make excuses for her. But and that can be really, you can get denial around that, can't you? It can be really hard to see sometimes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of guys aren't used to what it's like to have a girl who actually wants to go for them. Genuine desire is rare. I know we have all experienced it, but a majority of guys haven't. So when they get, let's say, into a relationship with a girl who treats him like shit, to him, that's normality. Like John tells his girl to F off when she is being, and I'm trying to use my words carefully because I don't want to be disrespectful, but she pulled shit on him and he's like, no, you're not coming with me on vacation. I had that a while back as well with my main girl. I don't even remember what she did, but I was like, okay, bye. And she's like, what do you mean, okay, bye? Left her on red.
Yeah.
By God, man, my phone did not stay quiet for the entire evening. I was with friends. They're like, are you not going to pick that up? I'm like, no. She's like, why not? She's worried. No, she was acting like a bitch. And I'm gonna pick up when I'm done.
Yeah. No, you and that's low tier pimp game right there. When you if you want to be a real pimp, you got to get the girls cracked out on you as the emotional drug dealer. And when she acts a fool, you cut her off ice cold. And then they start
lose their minds.
They fucking show up at your house 3 o'clock in the morning. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. You didn't answer your phone, and I thought something bad happened to you. Like, no, bitch, you knew nothing wrong happened to me. You want to fucking win this little war.
Wow. But that's kind of how you do it. But guys do not realize they set the terms to their own relationship, but they're so afraid to rock the boat that they never actually set terms.
Yeah.
They let her behave like that. Ryan said it best. A woman will behave as shitty as you let her.
Oh,
and a lot of guys let her run off.
Yeah, that's true, and I've certainly experienced that in the past. But I mean,
we all have. That's why we're here. That's why we know this shit. We failed miserably.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, speaking for myself, I can certainly say that. I mean, but
me too. I don't got no ego. It's true. I've fucking struck out big times. And
same here. I was blue.
We all make the mistakes because I guess we don't have you don't have the experience at the beginning, and you haven't been through it before. And maybe if you haven't had, I guess people talk about male role models and all that stuff, right? You know, if you haven't had that sort of mentoring, then which is why, you know, what the gentlemen on the panel provide is valuable, because guys, sometimes, a lot of the time, guys need to be taught this stuff. If you don't, great, you know, you're one of the lucky ones. But I think many guys do. But I mean, we've done over an hour now, and we're kind of coming up to the end of the section. But I mean, has anyone got any thoughts in terms of nice guys? Why are guys nice guys? Why is it so hard for these guys to access their? Because I reckon most of us have got a dark side. I reckon most of us have got this transgressive taboo side. So why is it that so many guys kind of hide it or feel uncomfortable expressing it?
It's beating out of them. It's being beaten out of them, like from the beginning. Be a nice guy. Be nice to Susie. Ask Susie how she feels. Things like that. Like, no, women want to be treated nicely. You have to carry her books, buy her flowers, and ask her how her day was. They have been, to put it bluntly, programmed to act the nice. Like, doesn't matter. Women know better. Whatever you do, you are wrong, Tommy. Be nice. That's it. And through what I just said about that whole sex addiction, you see men, celebrities, and you name it, being shunned for, let's say, having a extramarital affair or whatever. And all of a sudden, it's like sex addiction. It's wrong. And well, when you're younger and you see that, and you have your teachers, your parents, your counselors, you name it, double down on that, well, you kind of go with it. You don't want to rock the boat. So every, let's say, bad thought you have is being pushed under. It's being oppressed. And that's why a lot of guys have a hard time embracing that. But as you asked John, can it be taught? Yes, but to guys who have experienced trauma, it comes more natural because the boat had been rocked for us. we had a rude awakening, sort of say, like, hey, shit, the world isn't out there for my to keep me safe. It's actually very dangerous in there.
That's an interesting point, isn't it? And I know, John, obviously you've had your, trauma in your past, and I know, Jack, you have as well.
Yeah. Life is trauma.
Yeah. and I have as well, even though, John, you said the other day, oh, you didn't think that I had, but actually the truth is that I had. I mean, my parents were divorced when I was a kid. I had a really bad time with my stepmom, etc., etc., etc. So, and like, it's kind of weird because I actually posted on Instagram yesterday. Somebody had done a testimonial about my course, Cat Academy, but I posted a testimonial, and this guy said one thing that he learned was that you could utilize your dark past as a way to sort of expand your character, right? And like for me, it was, like I said, for me, it was something I didn't do it intentionally, but I think that women that I was interacting with before I learned about this stuff, they could sense on me that there was something a bit broken there. They could sense that there was this sort of like darker side, and that somehow fascinated them and drew them in. And what you realize as you go on is that rather than trying to hide that and try to just pretend to be, no, I'm just a great regular guy. Hey, let's go to IKEA together. You can actually, that's actually a benefit to you.
Yeah, I would say that the reason why these guys don't enact on their dark side, it all goes back to a scarcity mindset. They're like fucking prisoners on mess hall, like protecting their food as they eat it. And I just think that once you have your game dialed in, and once you realize, like, bro, now more than ever, women have flooded the market with pussy. Women have flooded the market with pussy. That's all they know how to do. Women have, in the Western world at least, they don't know how to be feminine. They don't know how to be fucking anything other than a cum dumpster. And that's what they think game is, like just bringing pussy to the table. I mean, look at these chicks on the Fresh and Fit podcast. Delusional, only because they bring pussy to the table, and they're not as disgusting as the 36.5% of all the obese people in America, right? And the 32% of overweight people in America, because they're in that 31% of people that are not fucking obese and not overweight. They think, or I've seen girls that are just less overweight than the fucking obese bitches, and they think like, this is good enough. This is all I needed to bring to the table. And I mean, that right there erodes the reason for them to be a high quality woman, in the sense of having femininity, having grace, having skills, being ladylike, right? Those women, their value has been inflated by fat women flooding the market. So there's such a scarcity mindset for these women that they're not incentivized to act good. And then when the guys do get one of these chicks, they want to like hoard and protect it because they think that it is a scarce resource. But the reality is, it's not necessarily a scarce resource. The real scarce resource is a high value man. Period.
Absolutely, indeed. Not a scarce resource on this panel, though, I have to say.
Did that make sense? I know I was trying to Rollo Tomasi it, but I don't know if I don't know.
You're only 3 hours short for that one.
Angry Rollo has entered the chat.
What did you say?
Yeah, no, absolutely, no, make a lot of sense. How do we wrap up then? I think we're kind of coming to the end really on this. And John's probably going to fall asleep on the stream anyway if we carry on for too much longer. The symbol that he uses for this is the forest, because it's like the scary forest that you kind of know you shouldn't go into, but maybe you kind of want to go into it. And like I said, at the end of all of these chapters, Greene talks about, well, what's the reversal to this? What's the other side to this? And with this, there kind of isn't really another side. Because, John, before you came on, what I was saying was, what Greene says is, okay, if you want to be a nice guy, be fucking Gandhi. Be like the Buddha, right? If you want to be a nice guy, take that shit to an extreme. And he finishes off by saying, in seduction, there's absolutely no power in respecting boundaries or limits. So, really, I think revealing your darker side is the way to go. But listen, if you want to be a nice guy, don't just be Pat Stedman, be bloody Jesus Christ, right? You've got to be iconic. And I think that's kind of what we're saying here, really, isn't it?
Be more virtuous than virtue itself. Like, you know, those guys, those over virtuous assholes where you're just like, oh, you just want to bang her and you're pretending to be nice. Like,
well, don't be like that. Just give up all your possessions and go and live in the fucking street or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, give all your money to charity. Like, you've got to, like, with all of these things, it's like, are you going beyond the bounds of polite society or not? And most people don't. And that's the bottom line. But if you do, you're going to get a lot of haters, as we all know, but you're also going to get a lot of rewards from that.
Yep. Nothing to add, actually.
Yeah, no, that's it. I think it's a good closing note there.
Indeed. Okay. Well, all that being said, so John, listen, you've got some cool stuff coming up soon. Do you want to tell them where you can, what you've got coming up, where they can find you, etc.? They kind of know anyway, but
April 29th, Masculine Empowerment Network is going live with a 5-day enrollment. Okay. What you do, you get the first ever Rule Zero based censorship-free forum. You get access to 60 Zoom webinar coaching sessions throughout the year. They're broken down into sessions of 20. The first batch of 20 are starting on May 5th, 10:15 a.m. Eastern, and then they will be back at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard the exact same day. We'll do that for 10 business days, running from May 5th to the 18th. In addition to that, you get Body Language Mastery, my course, 100% for free. You also get 1 year of Telegram coaching access in my group, my community. And finally, you get access to all the previously recorded coaching sessions from 2019 and 2020. Literally 200 hours of uncensored red pill content that is only available at the masculineempowermentnetwork.com. Get on the waiting list today, because April 29th, it goes live. It is only open for 5 days. And then on May 3rd at midnight, it closes. You can't get in, and we open up registration later in the year.
YouTube channel is in the chat. I have also narrated Carl from Black Label Logics, his Gendernomics 1 and 2. Those are also in the chat. Look out for Red Evening, a show I do together with Rob from Masculine Geek about just daily normal life as a Red Pill aware man, which is on 10 p.m. Utah, Salt Lake City time. So that's it.
Yeah. You're
Troy,
muted.
you're muted.
Muted yourself on your own stream.
Well, you know, sometimes I have to. Excellent stuff. And for me, just please hit subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications bell, give me a thumbs up, give us comments below, thumbs down, whatever you want to do. It all helps with the algorithm. And grab Renegade Dating Blueprint, which is my collection of 11 books about dating, game, the sexual marketplace, etc. What the hell is that creepy hand?
That is the Infinity Gauntlet.
It's the Power Gauntlet.
Indeed, the power of Rule Zero, the power of darkness. All right, guys. Well, thanks.
Move the fingers.
Thanks ever so much for coming on, guys. And for you guys out there and people watching on the replay, many thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.